Mentioned during the course of my talk is the fact that averages curse us. That looks familiar, thank you. And if I forget to say it during my talk, I just want to mention it right up front. And so I have this old saying that put your left foot in a bucket of ice, please. How does that feel? Now put your right foot in a bucket of boiling water. How does that feel? But let me tell you, on average, it's warm and you should feel great comfort. Everything's well. And it's a bit like that down on the farm. You know, we can have an average for the farm, but there's a lot of stuff going on around the edges. And so just with that also in mind as a bit of background, yeah, I just mentioned that. Right, it's this consultant's perspective, and I've been around the traps for almost 50 years. Starting life with MAF in Hawke's Bay in 75, then some time up in Gisborne, and then most of my life up in Northland, farming up in amongst the Kaikuia. As our friend down here was mentioning, it is different. But interestingly, well-managed Kaikuia can produce some pretty damn good results too. Right, let's get into it. So, a consultant's approach. I'd like at the very start just to say that we like to take a strategic approach when we get on farm. And so we'd want to look at that SWOT analysis, which was mentioned by you, I think. Where did that come up? Yes. So that was a Marlborough type approach on that farm. And so about the people and the farm. What do they like doing and not like doing? So my experience has been, if you're trying to get somebody to do what they don't want to do, they don't like, you're pushing stuff uphill with a very sharp stick. What are the person's or the farm's goals and aspirations, short and longer term? We are of the view that you front foot things around the environment, and so you have a level 3 land and environment plan. You do something once and you do it properly. I mean, your soils never change, nor does your land use capability. So why not know them right up at the front, yes? And these are the little things that come out of doing a land and environment plan, which many farmers feel is a regulatory requirement. And I suggest that this is good farming, actually knowing all these things. You've got a heap of knowledge in your head. Why not formalise that into a plan? And you'll be on the front foot and you'll tell people what's going on your farm rather than them tell you what you should be doing with your land and your livestock. It's about having a good farm map, and we can get all carried away going to field days and the like, and mostly those of you that are more advanced in your thinking about that are at those field days. But look, trust me, when I get around in the back blocks out in the Kawhia Hills, things like good farm maps, they're hard to find. And so one of the outcomes of a good land and environment plan, in fact, is a good farm map. You actually know the size of your farm. Do you know that I increase farm production per hectare immediately that we do a farm plan? And the reason for that is most overemphasise or have exaggerated the number of hectares that are effective. And so immediately we increase production per hectare because usually they're 10% bigger than what they really are. And so it's about getting the right stock on the right land. We just had 15 farmers on a little study tour, and I took them out to a property at Tamata near Raglan. And we looked at that farm that I'd visited in 2018, and they had big bulls charging around all over it. Small farm, 237 hectares, doing 200 kilos of net carcass weight a hectare. Now that's sitting in around the regional average, by the way. But they were wrecking that farm, absolutely wrecking. There's a reason they asked me out. We got a land and environment plan done, got little bulls up on the steep land and big bulls down on the easy land. And we were able to report to the farmers that visited just last week that they were pulling over 400 kilos of net carcass weight and a nice profit off the steep land, and it was being sustainably farmed, and 599, just for our friend over here, not 600, 599 kilos of net carcass weight off the easy land. Now that is great going. And while I'm going to talk to you about systemisation a little later, we do not step onto farms without doubling production when we put systems in place. And there's reasons for that, which we'll talk about. So it's right stock on the right land, alternative land use options are explored, and we get to a place where we have best land use, and sometimes it's not livestock. The farm is modelled on Farmax. I don't believe a consultant can deliver effectively to a client without using this program. It's amazing. You know, we get to the guts of things, we get numbers around things, we get a handle on how much pasture you're growing, for the fact that the amount of pasture the animals ate, they had to have been met. And with a bit of look at the feed demand, supply profile, we can get a pretty good handle on just how much pasture has been grown, something fundamental, do you not think? Okay, so we do the base performance for that farm, say, hey, on average, this is what's been going on the farm. The farmer agrees to that. And then we say, what about looking at some of the alternatives? And so we do those what-if things. And we have this old saying, you make your mistakes on the computer, not on the farm. The farm is benchmarked, and thankfully, beef and lamb, through the Economic Service, have that great benchmarking program where we can benchmark this farm against the average for the farm class, but then we can go to the quartile or quintile analysis as well and say, where do they sit? Are they anywhere near the top or what? And so, you know, somebody said before, 80% of us think we're in the top 20%. That's so true. And knowing where you are on the ladder is often a great motivator to change. I think of one farmer out at Wharepahanga, not too far from here. We went out and did that for his farm, and he said, I'm a better farmer than that. And I said, I believe you are too. And and I said, let's do it. And he said, yeah, why not? And so that was a great thing. And just to make the point that one of our roles is just to support farmers through transition. I want to do a quick situation review, and Graham, I want to go through this quite quickly because I want to get to the end point where I think where the big gains can come from. A situation review. The thing is that we, as I say, think we go to field days and we think that what's happening on farms like that is sort of what happens everywhere, and it's not the case. There's a lot of other stuff going on out there. Now, please remember I'm talking about sheep and beef farms, yes? So what are the challenges and opportunities? So if you go and look at the beef and lamb economic service survey data, which I'm saying is great value to us. Thanks, Martin. Keep it up, don't stop. But get them up a little bit closer to, you know, the results out sooner. That would be cool if you could do that. So we find that there's relatively low profit margins. You know, we find that there's many older and sometimes unmotivated, although I have to say just because you're old doesn't mean to say you're not motivated. I mean, I'd like to think pardon? Yeah, just because some of us are getting old, we're still passionate and blooming motivated, let me tell you. So it's a generalised comment. Many farms have deferred maintenance or inputs which are below maintenance requirements. Fertiliser is one of those. Infrastructure is often inadequate. I mean, we expect people to weigh stock, but have you seen the yards that some of these guys operate in? It's unbelievable. We think we're going to get all this technology across, and really what they need is a decent set of yards where there's some comfort when you get animals in, and it's not a major conflict, you know. Yep. And there are environmental challenges. There's carbon, there's trees, there's loss of natural capital, and it's what is best land use. All of these sorts of things sit out there. Many farmers, in fact, feel seriously threatened by this. And why is that? Because they're not positioned themselves to know about what the real issues are and the fact that they actually can address them. And there are some very useful and effective ways, not the least of which is a high-level land and environment plan. There is oftentimes limited opportunity to change pastoral land use. I mean, it's sort of pasture or trees and not much else. You can't put in 20 hectares of kiwi fruit or 10 hectares of avocados or whatever. Forestry is not always an opportunity, production forestry, just due to accessibility. Like it's going to cost $1 million to get a track out to be able to harvest these trees. So people think, oh, yes, cool, just plant some trees. Well, it's not that simple. And there's a huge challenge for the next generation coming into farming. Just raising the money. There's not a natural progression into sheep and beef farming. So there's many young people now making profession out of farm management. But there needs to be a way of them to get across on the private farms, all right for the corporate farms, a whole nother discussion area. And we're crippled with price averaging, as I mentioned. It cripples us in our pricing structure. You know, I'm big on beef. And if we go out there, like this great price averaging system where I can send in a 40-month-old steer weighing, say, 285 kilos to pluck a number out of the year, and it'll grade P2, for example, which is a prime grade, middle muscle class, and I can send in a 20-month steer of the same weight, and it will also grade the same, and they'll go into the same box and be exported happily. Now, don't tell me that is a good way of marketing our product. And that's something Beef and Lamb could work on, Martin. Just something else to add to your list. And we'll blame you. So I've talked about that. Yes, this is the average age, so you can go through and have a look at it. I have a farmer friend who said, you know, I'm 55 and I was 55 10 years ago and I was an average age of a farmer. Now I'm 65 and I'm still the average age of a farmer, you know. The opportunities there, we've got to think of new ways to get people on the land. I have a couple of examples where the farmer's in a trust and they've established a livestock company. Just 3 minutes to go, I've got to be quick. Jing, that time goes fast. I talk too much. I get a bit excited about this stuff. So what we've done is set up a livestock company and the farm worker has a share in that livestock company and he gradually builds the share to the point where he actually owns the livestock over a course of time. Right, I'm going to go through these things really quickly then because I've only got 3 minutes and I want to take you right through to environmental challenges. I've talked a little bit about that. We're crippled with price. I've just teased all these things out, but this is what I want to tell you about. This is the farm I just talked about a minute ago with the 600 and the 400, and it's out near the coast. And I'm going to suggest to you today that systemisation on our sheep and beef farms is the way to go. And I want to quickly, got 3 minutes to get through this. It's the best pastoral land use, and I want to concentrate on that for a minute. It does basic things really well. Those of us that are old like me cut our teeth on the three big S's: subdivision, stock policy, and soil fertility. These are the core things. And doing these things well is how you make money. Now, beef systemisation is just a great way of enabling those three big S's to be applied onto farm. A beef system, and this is what I'm going to focus on in this little bit here, is a dedicated all pasture land area of anywhere between 5 to 50 hectares. It's characterised by the fact that you have 10 permanent paddocks, with each having water reticulation. Electric fencing, oftentimes no gates, up to 80 paddocks or cells. I mean, I work out on the Rangataiki Plains with Pamu there. We've got 160 to 180 day winter rotations, all pasture systems. They work. 2 to 3 day shifts. Stocked at 800 to 1200 live weight per hectare, none of the stock units per hectare. And we have oftentimes bulls, and it was initially set up for bulls, but then we've progressed across into dairy beef. Same stock, same area for 7 to 12 months of the year. 60 to 160 day rotation depending on your pasture growth. Disciplined approach, and this is the cool thing about these. It's discipline, it has structure and it has process. As I say, cheapest feed on the planet, pasture. A real focus on utilising pasture and getting your match of feed demand against feed supply. Farmax helps us with that. We can facilitate small mobs, which is best suited to bulls, but also it's great for animals and their welfare. But we can manage bigger mobs as well. Our friend over here talked about the importance of pasture cover, and in our world we haven't talked enough about that. But we know that when we get pasture cover right, and we talk about leaves of pasture being like solar panels, we grow a whole lot more grass, and we know it's somewhere between 20 and 30%. It's a little secret. Well, it's not a secret. It's something that we don't talk enough about. So a system enables you to hold yourself into the best pasture cover that you can in an all pasture system. That's all about that, and the fencing systems that are available to us, and like there's micro troughs, there's fiberglass, there's all sorts of cool stuff that farmers can use, and it's really cheap. We can ride across fences. I can talk to you about how I've got about a minute left, and so we talk about bulls all day long, but there are other options. There's one spread heifers, which is sort of next cab off the rank. This is a system where we're finishing heifers and we just nobble a calf on the way through. A cool system. And it's based on research and practical experience. But we've got other systems that are operating, like at Rangatike, for example, where we have mobs of 200 to 400 yearlings in a mob. The same practice with the structure and the process and the discipline, and they are magic. So I won't keep I want to just introduce to you the fact that in our world we have the opportunity now to look at genetics, thanks to beef and lamb genetics and the dairy beef progeny test. Like there's bulls on here that dairy farmers can use that will give them a value proposition around gestation length, birth weight and growth to weaning, but more particularly, thinking of my beef farmers, that they have got cattle that'll grow and finish to much higher weights than just an old rumpty-doo bull that you bought for not much, or for a local guy down the road that thought he'd leave the nuts on a Hereford bull. Those days are gone. This is where it's at. But it's with AI. It's in a straw, it's not on the hoof. And there's a whole lot of advantages that go with that too. What does it cost to systemise? Less than it does to regrass, and we know that old pasture in our environments up this way will be better than I'll go back a notch. Not better, but just as good. And we can use that money we've used for repasturing into a system. Then and that's the fourth leg. There's the three big S's. The third big S is S. And if we ever want to go back and repasture, it's after you've got those other things sorted. So that's probably the message I want to leave you with right now, Graham. As usual, I have far too much to say and far too many slides, and I get far too sort of excited about things. But this, I was asked to deliver to a beef celebration in Northland about 18 months ago, and they said, Bob, tell us from all of your years, 45 odd years at that time, what would be the single biggest thing that you could tell us that would make a difference on our beef farms, thinking beef, and systemisation, without a doubt. As I say, double the production on every farm we've systemised from conventional to systemisation. Thank you.